Hi everyone, my name is Joanna and today I wanted to do a video about acceptance. And I find that it's actually kind of a difficult thing to explain and it's a difficult thing to understand. So I'm going to do my best and kind of break it down. Where I see acceptance emerge is in three main areas. One is acceptance of ourselves. The second is acceptance of situations. And thirdly is acceptance of others and our relationships with others. So the first and foremost thing I wanted to do is just kind of break down acceptance a little bit and help just kind of create a base of understanding. So the way I try to explain and teach acceptance is not about making yourself feel okay or positive about things that don't work for you. That's not acceptance. Acceptance is really just an acknowledgement of how things are. You are allowed to have your full range of emotional responses to it. That's not the problem. So you can be accepting of something and still not feel good about it. But it's just acknowledging that this thing happened, this thing exists, this thing is happening now, and not getting stuck in the whole concept of wishing something to be different, wishing someone else to be different. You can use acceptance to help highlight things that can be matches or mismatches, but it's just actually just saying, hey, this is really happening and I just need to acknowledge the full range of this experience and then use it to inform self. So in relation to self-acceptance, what I tend to find is people tend to place themselves in boxes, these kind of categorical boxes, meaning, I'm nice, I'm mean, I'm selfish, I'm this. And what I encourage is instead of using just labels, try to think of your range of being as being on a continuum. You're not in a box. You can have a lot of attributes or a lot of qualities that can seemingly be in conflict. So you can, depending on the day, your mood, the situation, even the people you're interacting with, people in situations can draw out different aspects of a personality. So one day you can find that you're really patient, really generous, and another day you might find yourself kind of irritable. Maybe there's a more intense longing for personal space. Maybe you're feeling defensive, and we can be all of those things. They are not mutually exclusive. It's more like this huge list of qualities or traits that we can all encompass. It just depends on the context. So sometimes what I notice is people tend to really focus, especially on what they don't like about themselves, and put themselves in these boxes of negative being, like I'm selfish, or I'm moody, I'm this, and you can be that, and you can be other things too. So it can be really helpful when just kind of allowing for the different range that you have in your being, and take more of an objective stance when looking and evaluating your own patterns. If you're finding you're feeling kind of ick about something and there's a part or an attribute that you aren't super excited about, instead of shaming yourself or labeling yourself in a negative way, you can use that, lean in, start to look at the patterning around that behavior. Look at it as a behavior versus a quality. We all have times where we're under-resourced, tired, sick, what have you, and don't necessarily act in a way that we feel is either congruent with us or that we're really proud of. But there's no need and there's no benefit to go into shame and start beating yourself up. It's actually, I think, way more of a positive and loving experience to just allow for the fact that you're going to have moments that you're not going to feel like you're shining, and to look at them and evaluate like what led to that. And you'll start to notice triggers, you'll start to notice patterns. Sometimes you'll find that there's a lot of learned patterning that you can do different. So what you see as being kind of your more limited qualities can actually highlight areas of growth and become sources of strength. You can really work on that. We're always evolving, we're always growing. Life is always giving us situations and opportunities to learn and to change. We're not meant to be static beings, and we're never going to attain a level of perfection. We're just always developing. So the goal is not to be this perfect being, because it's unattainable. The goal is to be open-minded, forgiving, loving of self, and allow for mistakes and learn from them and grow and just keep building. In regards to acceptance of situations, a lot of times we might be faced with a life circumstance or an event that caused harm, caused us pain, causes us stress. And the goal is not that you need to feel differently about it. The goal is that you need to acknowledge what you can and cannot influence. There are some aspects of things that we just can't control, and there's almost a process of surrendering to that and allowing for the fact that we're not able to control all aspects of our lives, and that's okay. You don't have to. But if you're facing a situation and you're feeling really uncomfortable, stressed by it, instead of focusing on what you hate about it and how it's not the thing that you want, you can accept that that's where it's at right now, and you can use that understanding, that mismatch, that awareness that this thing does not meet your needs, and use that knowledge to seek out something that does. So you're not required or obligated to stay in situations that don't serve you. You can't always pivot and move out of them right away, but you can acknowledge it's not a match. You can acknowledge and validate your own negative response to it, but then you can also mobilize and exert influence where you have the ability to. And that helps people feel less stuck and less helpless. So it can take a while to kind of learn how to pick through your experiences and kind of recognize what's yours, what you have influence over, what you don't. But you'll find a peace in sometimes the surrendering process, where instead of trying to exert control over something you just can't, you just acknowledge that you can't, and you just really focus on where you do have influence and make all changes or shifts in that arena, and you can get awesome results from that. So I hope that's a little helpful. And then the last one that I see pop up for a lot of people is acceptance of others and acceptance of relationships. Again, there tends to be this mindset that if we're accepting, we tolerate, and we have to be really careful about that. Acceptance is not tolerating negative or harmful dynamics with others. So it's not, hey, this person is doing this and it keeps hurting me, but I'm this accepting, loving person, so I'm just going to let them keep doing this. That's not acceptance. That starts to feed into a more of an enabling pattern. Now, I do understand that relationships and people go through difficult times, but overall it should be like a teeter-totter. It should not just be one-sided, where someone's always providing resourcing and support and the other one's taking. If it's a balanced relationship, the teeter-totter is going to go kind of up and down. You're going to have a balance, like a give and take. If it's always just like stuck, where one person is giving and providing and the other one's just always taking, then you have a dynamic that might not be the healthiest. It doesn't mean that all of them need to be cut off or are super unhealthy, but you need to look at that and really kind of assess the overtone of that relationship. So when we are accepting of others, what that really comes down to is, again, an acknowledgement of where a person is in their own growth and development. I find it easier just to kind of look at it like that's where a person is in the phase of life. It doesn't mean they can't shift out of it. It doesn't mean that I'm obligated to wait until they do. So it's just saying, hey, this is where this person's at right now, and an assessment of how you feel about it. If it causes you harm and you don't feel like it's healthy to have a close or active relationship with that person, is absolutely your right to move away. And maybe you might do that for the right now, because you find that it's more of a drain to you than it is a benefit to have this person in your life. Or maybe they're just unintentionally or intentionally causing harm. That's not judgment. Judgment isn't Judgment is really critiquing the quality of a person's being, but you can recognize that we're all equal and that someone just might be going through a phase of life and that you're not going to invest a lot of energy in that relationship at that point and to move away. And that's fine. That's still practicing acceptance. That's accepting that that's where they're at, and you can still determine that that's not okay for you and you don't want to be part of that and move away. So it's I think it's a delicate balance, and people know themselves best. I always say, armchair other people's relationships, and they're really quick to say, hey, you need to end that relationship or you need to work it out. And I always say, you know best. You have to assess for yourself because you have to choose the consequences of all your choices. It's your life. So if you're feeling like the overtone or the relationship itself is something that's important, and you are understanding of the limitations, then that's okay. But then you need to accept the limitations as well. You can not feel comfortable about them, but you can't go and maintain a relationship with the hopes that it's going to change and complain it's not, when in fact you're accepting that a person is just where they're at. So I hope that's helpful. It's pretty confusing, I think, but I just find that people seem to equate acceptance with taking negative emotions or negative views or experiences and trying to convert them into being positive ones, and it's not valid, it's not effective, and it's not going to work. Like, you can't look at something that's caused you pain and then try to convince yourself that you should feel differently. That isn't acceptance. It's just surrendering to the fact that this has happened, and it's okay for you to feel bad about it or to feel sad, and it's okay to have these responses to it, and to validate your emotional experiencing around it. But it's not going, the situation or whatever transpired, it's not going to change. You're not in the realm of thinking I shoulda, woulda, coulda, or I wish that this person would do this instead. You're just like, this is what's happening, and I have to look at what am I wanting to do with this experience. So these sometimes painful processes, whether it's learning to sort of love all aspects of ourselves, learning to be tolerant of situations that don't serve us while looking for those that do. These are all growth opportunities. Growth is never, it's rarely a comfortable process. It's actually usually pretty stressful and painful. And in the moment, we can feel really lost, and it isn't usually until later, after we've kind of moved through these experiences, that we have a better understanding of what was sort of being taught, and what the positive is from that experience. But in the moment, it generally can feel really negative and really unsettling, and sometimes we can kind of get into a hopeless or helpless sense. But please always use your emotions as your navigational tool in life. It's a great way to know kind of where you're headed. If something for the most part makes you feel negative, it's likely because it's not a match for you, and you recognizing that it's not a match is not a judgment. It's just an acceptance of the limitation. And again, you always have the right to pivot away from anything that doesn't meet your need or serve your purpose, and hopefully with some ability to kind of discern and have some tolerance for discomfort. Negative emotions don't have to be these things we avoid, but they can help educate us as to what we're really needing and seeking in life. So I hope that was helpful. Again, it's a complicated subject, and I think a lot of people struggle with this on a daily basis. But if you have any comments, if you have any feedback, I'm open to hearing any. Otherwise, I wish you the greatest of days.